paper here. It's an old piece of Arches. And here's what I'm talking about. Take a little bit of that violet that we started with. Oh, don't want to use that. I could. I'm over here. Take a little of that, make a little dot. Make it a little bigger than, we'll do it quickly. And I'm going to take a better brush. I'm going to take my little brush. It must be lighter, so I'm going to take more water on the brush, you see? And the shape of the leaf is more round, see? For the orchid. And I could turn my paper. Now the orchids, the leaves actually fit underneath each other, but that's a little thing I'm not going to do. Not this time. I would have to put in a couple leaves. They're not leaves, they're petals. I'd put a few petals in, and when they're dry, then I would slip another one in behind. But that's okay. Now if you look at the orchid, you can see there's yellow in the middle. And the problem with that is, if I put yellow onto here, it won't be really yellow. So I'll take a little paper towel and just dab the middle to whiten it up. Wait for a moment, lift it off, and now I can take a little bit of the, looks like a very light yellow. I will do the cadmium, just a drop on here, and just put a little bit of yellow here and there. Okay, that's good enough. Now, this is not dry, but let's say you let it dry for a moment or two, maybe 2 minutes, and then you can add these little dots, you see? Now, I'm going to try it with it wet. And I just take a little bit of this crimson, see? Put it on my paper. And a pinch of, obviously it's not quite crimson yet. I'll take a little bit of the phthalo, see? And it might be a little too dark, or maybe it's just perfect. I'll try it. There, that's pretty dark, but it's going to disperse. And you see? So am I faithful to the actual look of the orchid? No, the orchid is inspiring me. I don't have to do things exactly the way they look. You'll see that now, then they get really fine around here. You see, fine. And if you look at the orchid, you can see, oh look, there's a little white rim here, and this would be a wash of color. And I mean, you could spend a long time faithfully reproducing the orchid. Oh, look at this. You see these streaks of yellow? This was an old piece of paper. Sometimes painting on paper that has a little bit of a wash in it will work. Let's see if I can fit in a leaf here. I'll take a little bit of this. I'll add some water to it. And this brush is kind of small, but it might work. I'll add a little more water. I want it quite light, but I want the brush full of paint. And I'm going to now, see, holding my finger, I'm going to start here, and then when I make my little line, I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And now I've added another petal. Not a leaf, a petal. Just put it right close. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle it out. Look at the shape as you wiggle. See that little introduction of a little bit of phthalo? How it's added to the little bit more, it's more violet than the crimson. Now this one, I've got a big blob on my end of my brush, so I'd be careful. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. This Arches paper, I don't know, it's pretty good. Now look what I'm getting here. I'm creating my own little flower. As I look at it, I think I'll add another one. There's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think I'll add another one in here. So this is more like the begonia, where the flowers cluster together. And there's my little technique. It's coming along nicely. Let's take some of the begonia color and the cadmium, add a little water to it. And let's see what happens when we just shoot out some little lines like this. All over the place. Just shooting out lines. Have I a preconceived idea what this looks like? No. I'm just using simple techniques and seeing what happens. Maybe I'll, get some green. A little bit of phthalo. Oh, that's the warm green. I want the cool green because I have enough warmth in the orange. So I take a little bit of this. You know, practicing and playing with simple ideas and simple techniques. Keep playing with them until you've mastered them. Okay, we're gonna add some dark green strokes to each one of these. You know, you can just build this and build it for a while and fill your page with petals and strokes. Add a little water, it's getting a little dry. Using complementary colors. Maybe add a little bit of a little thing on the end of each petal. Or add, before it's too dry, add a little drop in here, see? Every time you add something, something happens. I would think probably I would sit and add quite a bit of these little green little marks. Now this is a good idea for a painting. You know, it's not the finished product, but it's a good little study. We call them studies, where you pick up an idea and see what you do. This almost looks like a vase here. Why don't I take a nice flat brush, simple little flat brush, and take a little bit of yellow, straight from here. Oh, Ronald, you don't want to wreck that. Make sure it's mixed up nicely. There we go. This cadmium, and we're going to put the cadmium right down about this far. Give it a little streak, see? Pure yellow. Very dark violet. I'll have to add a little bit of, let's say, a little yellow ochre to neutralize it. It's pretty dark. And I'm going to, I mean, this may not turn out at all. I mean, but I'm going to now go right over everything. See what happens. Hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Coming right in here. Now there's parts of this picture that I really liked. I like putting the dots on. And now we're neutralizing here the background. And the Arches paper is really taking in the paint. It's not getting muddy. And remember, don't be afraid to mix up a fair amount of paint. And now where the orange was, I'm darkening, you see? And it's making a lovely, almost a brown. but I'm liking it. And then we come in here. I have to be careful here because I'm not, I want it to come down. I don't want to ruin this yellow here. So I'm going to add more violet. And remember, these are all stainer colors. This says Arches. That's called the watermark. Wow, I'm kind of liking this. I'm thinking this is looking good. Okay. What do I do here? Well, I think I'll make an echo. I'll take this crimson. I'll come right down beside here. Leave that little white mark. I like that. I'll come down here. That's too close to that. And I think I'll keep it dark here, so I'm going to go with a very bold, dark, neutral. Probably as dark as the paint will get. And the reason being is I might eliminate this one here. So I think it's a better design right there. That orange is very, very bold. I'm going to come along there. I'm going to leave that. Might even put a few more in there. The yellow, come right up to it. Notice I'm only using 3 colors, but I am using a neutral. So now I'm going to go more into the phthalo down here. These could be candles. Well, before I get rid of that little white streak there, it's kind of abstract at the bottom, which I like. This is wonderful here. A little bit odd here, maybe just kind of fade it down. Yeah, maybe a little more yellow here, see? And I think it's time for the begonia effect. Let's call it the begonia effect. That's when you add the cadmium in. The cadmium drops. A little bit in here. This is lovely here. So I've decided I'm going to crop this. So a good way to crop is to take a piece of glass. I'll leave a little bit of these little lines here. Make sure it's straight. And I take my pair of scissors and score it. So now I like to just take my paintings, my little ones, my children, put them down, and you can see that these two are more finished because there's good contrast between dark and light. This still has a lot of mid-tones, right? And when it's dry, I can go a little farther with it, adding some darkness to it. I'm liking this soft edge here. So I'm looking at my work and I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? You take a simple technique and you add it to your pictures. And that's what we're doing, mastering simple techniques and becoming better watercolor artists.